What do you call an Italian suppository? An innuendo. Oh, Eric.
Anthony, the Italian delegation in Maine.
The Italian of Maine, yes. Why did the mafioso cross the road? Forget about it.
I'm just picturing Pizzuto's mic level just go.
We're spiking.
Wasn't there? Did you guys ever see that Office episode where I think Jim was pretending to be like the German police or something, and when Dwight Busby just slapped him? What was that?
No, it's knock knock.
Oh yeah, that's right. All right, go for it.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
KGB.
KGB.
I don't be asking the questions.
It's What You're Watching. Welcome to What You're Watching, presented by Geeky a Go-Go, a show where we dive into what's currently on our screens. Big screens or little screens, size matter not here, just the quality or lack thereof of our cues. I'm Chris Nitro. This week, we're concluding our review recap of The Acolyte, whose season and possibly series finale aired this past week. AP took a bath with a demon in the Devil's Bath, and Eric and I spun things up and wrangled some twisters. Anthony, take it away.
That was quite the intro, Nitro. I loved it. All right, folks, spoilers ahead, so skip ahead about 15 minutes. If you haven't watched episode 8 of The Acolyte, you have been officially warned. The season finale of The Acolyte aired July 16th, and contrary to what we shared in last week's episode, the finale did not tie everything up with a nice bow. And I mean, we accepted some cliffhangers. It is a Star Wars after all, but this episode left me wanting so much more because absolutely nothing was resolved. However, we did get to see some really cool things. Episode 8 picks up where Episode 6 left off, with Sol and May circling Brendok, while Osha and Chimere are gazing lovingly into each other's eyes, discussing the pros and cons of a potential training opportunity, while Darth Plagueis eerily watches in the distance. We see Sol die by the hands of Osha, fulfilling the requirement to kill without a lightsaber, and we get to see a big ol' cover-up from Venestra, blaming everything on the dearly departed Sol. Now, my take is that this episode left more questions on the table than answers, which is a bold move considering it still hasn't been renewed as of this recording, which is Sunday, July 21st at 11:22 a.m. Eastern Time. We did learn a few things, though, like Venestra confirming she was Chimere's former Jedi master and has no qualms about blaming the scandal of a Jedi murder spree on Sol. We got to see a Kyber bleeding on screen for the first time, which was awesome. And finally, we got a glimpse of Darth Plagueis. Unfortunately, we were wrong about it being Chimere, but still, it's nice to see Darth Plagueis the Wise for the first time on screen, and I hope we get more of his story in future series or seasons. So, Eric, thoughts on the finale?
Oh, man. They introduce all these new things, and we got a really nice, another really nice fight, which I appreciate. It's always cool to see the lightsaber, like the whole, you mentioned, like the bleeding of the lightsaber. We've never seen that live, which is awesome. So I think there are cool things like that kind of hidden throughout. But, you know, of all the episodes that we've seen so far, I just feel like maybe it's the pacing, maybe it's the editing, maybe they're like rushing to kind of wrap things up. This episode just feels so rushed and so piecemeal that makes me kind of annoyed. And, you know, in the end, I understand they're trying to set up for like a season 2, hopefully. And I think that the fans are now asking for a season 2. But, you know, generally, I think my takeaway was cool lightsaber fight. Wish there were more stories resolved.
So Sol, let's go back to Sol. Very popular character, survived the entire series. Did you see that coming at all?
Yeah. I mean, I figure some of these folks are gonna have to die anyway at the beginning of the show because there's just too many people alive to contain almost like this whole conspiracy story theory, right? And so, I mean, where would have Saul have been by the time of Phantom Menace if this is close to that and.
Well,
we haven't heard about him.
He probably would have been dead. It was 100 years beforehand, unless he's like one of those Jedi that get really old.
Well, we would have heard stories, right? Like we've heard like Darth Plagueis' story. We heard that Qui-Gon has a bit of a rebellious streak, and then all these kind of things, and we would have heard something about Saul, I think. But yeah, nothing. And I kind of expected somebody has to die, and I guess he died.
Yeah.
Which would be a bummer if there's a season 2, because I wonder where that story is going to go with the season 2.
Yeah, a lot of question marks coming out of season 1. Chris, this episode kind of relied a lot on Venestra to kind of take the load, so to speak, for the first time in 8 episodes, to be honest with you. I mean, she's had minor appearances in the other episodes. What did you think of her role in all of this? In terms of her cover-up, her approach, the possible jaw drop that she was Chimere's former master. Thoughts on that?
I think it was Eric that actually suspected that that he thought Chimere's master was Vernestra at some point, and I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, look, it happened. With so many people dying and Vernestra being a known character, if for those the people that have read the High Republic, it seemed like it was going to pivot towards her more, because it wasn't. This is like, obviously this is her first on-screen appearance, so it was like, why isn't the story more focused on her since she's a known character? And when she did come on screen, it didn't seem like a what's the word? Not a I'm forgetting the word. Where they just make an appearance, right?
Cameo.
Cameo. There you go. It didn't seem like that when she did appear, right? It seemed like she was going to be more involved, and then she wasn't. So it was like this weird thing. It's like we gotta fill the story in a little bit, and then we'll bring her back. And so, this last episode, we have an introduction of many new characters, right? Like, kind of like that pivot towards her, like as I said, and then we see at the very end. Everyone was waiting for this because we all knew Yoda was alive at the time. So we see Yoda at the very end of the episode, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? And I kind of mentioned it our last episode. There's way too many things going on to put a bow on this in one episode, right? And it still was a typical time frame, right? It wasn't like an hour long. I think it was like 40 minutes long or something like that, with including the credits. So typical time frame for an Acolyte episode. Like I just said, way too much stuff. I'm also surprised that we haven't had an announcement. However, I did predict that they may announce this at D23. Just under 3 weeks away. A little odd. I can't recall any show on Disney Plus saying, "Oh, already renewed." I just finished watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action one, on Netflix, and it already says, renewed for season 2 and 3. But I don't see Disney Plus doing that at all, or I haven't seen it. There's a lot of questions here, right? The introduction of the chancellor or whatever senator person he was, Darth Plagueis, as everyone is suspecting. I haven't seen it. Maybe it's out there, but I have not seen a Star Wars source saying that was Darth Plagueis. It's not in the credits.
It's been confirmed by the showrunner Leslie Headland that it is Darth Plagueis.
So there you go. Yep. I was very skeptical up to that point because I was like, it's someone in the shadows. We don't know. We don't see enough detail. I got Kalish vibes, which is what General Grievous is. that species. They're known to wear masks, but they don't always wear masks. But they had, the eye, the cat eye kind of look and stuff like that. I was like, that's the vibes that I got. But now you're confirming with me that it is him or they. I don't know what we're going to see out of that.
Chris thought it was Chimere's grandma hiding in the shadow.
When you coming back for dinner?
It's Italians in Star Wars.
Sorry,
now.
Nona. I'm trying to convince someone to be my acolyte.
Bring her home. Have lots of children.
So, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's just way too much new stuff happened in the last episode for them to be like, yeah, series over, which is possible, right? It is possible to be like, you know what, we're going to axe this because we've already seen them do it in Solo, right? They completely set up Solo for a sequel.
Right.
And nothing. So, fingers crossed. I don't know if we get to disco balls. Maybe there's more questions to be asked, but
yeah.
Yeah. What you think, Anthony?
Well, no, I left it angry and annoyed. So, I mean, I have nothing additional to add to that. The mind wipe of May. Why? That left me a big question mark, and maybe I hiccuped during a plot point that was spoken and I missed it. But what were your thoughts on the mind wipe? Was it necessary? I need someone to explain this to me as to why she got mind wiped. I just do not understand that at all outside of showing a new Jedi trick or a new Force trick.
We see that May completely recognizes that Osha is evil now, right? Quote unquote evil. There's scales here, right? Because we're 100% in the realm of gray Jedi. So she sees that she's turned towards the dark side. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But she's come back and feels that connection with her sister now. Right. So she wants to protect her. And so as she says, one of the lines she says, she's like, well, they'll use me to find you. And as they discovered, it's like they are the same exact person. They're like, they're clones, so to speak, for lack of a better term. So she said, you have to wipe my mind in order to, knock the trail off completely. So that's why that was done.
It's not going to hold. We know it's not going to hold.
And that's that. It's not going to hold. Right. Something's going to happen. The memory's going to be brought back. Yeah. It was a moot point. It's like, look, a fancy trick that's not going to stick around.
I also really disliked why they needed to do the whole Chimere, and like Chimere's personality changed for me quite a bit this episode, and then took a bit of a journey. And I don't understand. Yeah, we're training together and all that, but then now they're holding hands and like, what the hell's going on? And I'm reading somewhere where they filmed actually a kiss.
Oh, really?
But then they chopped it because it didn't work out, whatever kind of situation. And I don't understand why any of that has to happen. And it felt real quick for Osha to have gone through that transformation, and now it's buddy with like Chimere and about to have lots of Force children. And so it's I don't understand that progression at all. There was no development that led me to believe that was going to happen. So that was somewhat annoying too, as I was kind of thinking about it.
I'm with you on that one. And this is the thing that bugs me so much about these limited series. The whole serialized format used to be 20 to 25 episodes, and it would span the course of a half a year. But for some reason, Disney, and I know they're expensive to make, they're upwards of $20 million a pop, if not more, to produce these episodes, these episodics, but you're trying to cram so much into 6 to 8 episodes. And you can't tell that epic of a story. You can, but you have to do it right. Like, there could have been a Passage of Time episode but there was so much back, having to go and do your flashbacks to tell, the complete story. They could have done a half an episode of just, 5 years later type of thing, or, 2 years later, and saw that progression. That's the same problem that I had with, what was it? Obi-Wan, maybe? I don't know. Most of the series, the Star Wars series that have come out, have just been too rushed. And I'm with you. Yeah, there was no. It was like this is like a whole 24-hour period in essence. I mean, that's how it's shot. Like people don't change that much. Sober people don't change that much.
It's not like it's been
short
years.
Of amount of time. Yeah, exactly. So. I'm with you. I thought that was very strange as well. And I just think that's the fallacy of this limited series world that for some reason Disney is creating for us. I still don't understand why they can't make a 20-episode season, have it go on for 6 months, and drive us insane for 6 months versus just pounding it out in 8 weeks.
They don't want to invest in that money. They want to give themselves flexibility. Speaking of, you brought up Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. Now that the show is over, I think I read earlier that this show cost twice the amount of budget as Obi-Wan.
Oh, really?
And I don't...
The cast is like triple the size.
Yeah, but barely named, right? And why? Like, I don't...
I mean, think about it. The main... Other than... No, just the one Jedi. What's his name? Fakey Beard?
Torben. Fakey Beard. You mean Junior?
Yeah, so he's the only one of the main Jedi that they've been pushing in the press junkets, right? You have Junis Swatamo, right? He's established Wookiee, right? You have Carrie-Anne Moss, right? So every single person is like, oh yeah, this is Matrix 5 because of all the wire work, Daphne Keane, she's been around for quite some time now.
Who, by the way, is coming back in Deadpool.
Right. So it's not exactly like a unnamed cast, right? Like there's like, I wouldn't say like A-list, A-plus list celebrities, but there's up there celebrities in the entire thing.
The more you say that, the less I feel like a name. Like it's like how Marvel is now beginning to feel like this, and same thing with Disney's. I do believe that name casts actually don't mean much to the storytelling of it all, right? And so why waste the money and the budget on that when, to Anthony's point, maybe they could have done a few more episodes. Maybe, I don't know.
But I tell you what,
it feels unnecessary.
Even Carrie-Anne Moss, which is probably the most recognized actor in that series from a career perspective. I mean, if you're looking at $20 million per episode in production costs, her salary per episode for that, even on a Schedule F, is maybe, and I'm being generous on the high end, maybe like $50,000 per episode. She is not making enough money to break the budget. Ewan McGregor was probably making $250,000 per episode for Obi-Wan. And I have nothing to base that on besides his screen credibility within the Lucasfilm family. But yeah, their salaries are not what's breaking the budget. I'm curious what is breaking the budget. I mean, they had a ton of extras in this one, but that's obviously not breaking the budget either. I mean, they're day players. They're making $1,000 a day. Like, that's nothing, in a $20 million budget. So, yeah, I'm curious as to why. Maybe they did more locations versus volume shooting, and that's why, the budget, when you have to ship an entire company to Ireland or the UK, I mean, that's exponentially higher than filming in one of the volumes. So, yeah, very curious if there's been any kind of breakdown of that's available publicly.
Just one thing that Eric mentioned about the filming extra scenes, like you said, a kiss scene and stuff like that. It's like that might have been done strategically or tactically, just to throw everyone on the cast off. Say, hey, we're going in this direction, and then maybe it didn't work, and they're just like, hey, you know what, we're going to cut it all. I mean, we know like they've done it in the past with Empire Strikes Back. They put a script out that says one thing, and then they tell like the two characters are in the scene. It says no, I am your father. And then the whole rest of like everybody on the set is like, what? We didn't know this was happening. And then like that's what makes the actual film. Did that happen here? Like a 30% maybe. Like I think they actually tried to do it and they just junked it because it was like, this isn't working or we shouldn't go in this direction. I don't know. Just a food for thought.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any hopes for season 2 if there is a season 2?
I'm just excited that this show introduced us to Manny Jacinto's arms, and I would like to see more of him. Well, honestly, he's all everyone's been talking about this entire show. Actually, I think that if you look at the kind of mentions that's being talked about, like I think he's one of the breakouts from this show. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to see kind of where this show takes him, or I think just beyond now that he's being introduced into the Star Wars fandom. I think I'm excited about Lee Jong Jae finally getting like a Western like beyond Squid Game kind of show, and I think he's did an awesome job in the series. You talk about bringing like folks like that over. I would love to kind of start seeing more of him in like Western media as well, which I think is just exciting, even though it's dead, RIP. And I think in general, we can talk disco balls, but I feel like it was a decent show. I think that, thinking back, I was thinking last night, there hasn't been that many shows where it got us like literally talking every week, thinking about what do you mean? What do you think of this? Like, what do you think is about to happen here? So as much, I don't want to say criticism, but I think comments we've had about the show, I think that is very nice. And I think that is an indication that I think maybe this deserves like another season to kind of see kind of where this goes.
What about you, Chris?
I think I just want a second season. Right, I don't want to be left on this much of a unknown cliffhangery, like what's going to happen next kind of situation. Like that's all my wishes are. Like I don't care about seeing anything. I just want it to happen, right? And when it happens, I'll appreciate it or I won't, and that's it.
All right, so this series has been averaging about a 3.25, 3.5 disco balls since we started our recap series. Eric, disco ball rating for the series or the season of
I'll end around 3.5.
3.5. All right.
Yeah, and because there were so many sick lightsaber fights, also for the reasons I mentioned prior.
Nice. Nitro.
I'll bump it up to a 3.5.
Okay. All right. And because of my disappointment in resolution and lack of understanding if they will in fact do a second season, I would have accepted. It would have been a lot higher if we knew there was a second season coming to have all these cliffhangers open. But the fact that there's so much uncertainty, I'm going to keep mine at. I'll go with the flow. I'm going to do a 3.5 as well. I thoroughly enjoyed the entire series in totality, but the season finale was a little bit of a disappointment. And then
I don't think they struck the landing.
They didn't.
No.
And the fact that and I hate, but they had to show Yoda, and they were doing so great without having to lean on any of the original IP, and then that last 10 seconds they had to show Yoda. It's like, come on, you were doing so good.
Well, season 2 actually begins, and it's not Yoda. It's actually Yaddle.
Okay, good point. We have not heard Yaddle's story.
Everyone's racist, so.
I did it again. All right. Well, what did you all think of Acolyte, the series? Acolyte episode 8. Shoot us over your thoughts and theories and disco ball ratings at mailbag@geekyagogo.com. And Chris, let's go back to the rest of what you're watching.
All right, it's our typical what you're watching, folks. We'll start with Eric. Eric, well, it's not just Eric. It's actually Eric and I. We're tag team in this one, which is kind of a theme in the movie. So, Eric, what did you watch that I also watched?
We saw separately Twisters in theater with the man of the hour, Glenn Powell, who's bringing everything this year. yeah, we saw it this past week and thoroughly enjoyed it. This is not exactly a sequel to Twister, the first one, in case folks are curious. They are references to Twister. I think subtly dropped like little Easter eggs throughout. Maybe earlier, I think Chris of the movie, but it's a fairly independent movie, and I mean it's about as much as you expect. A lot of action, and I think Chris and I were talking about this. This movie was made for a theme park ride, is what it is. Like I think I could totally imagine this happening, and I think Chris, you told me that, and I went to see it, and I go, "Yep, 100%. I think this is a ride." Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was just entertaining. It's an entertaining kind of fun popcorn flicks. But Chris, what do you think?
So yes, I agree. Excuse me. The only tie-in that I noticed, and there may have been more, but my son is like super into weather phenomena lately. And the entire film, he's just like, "Oh my God, another tornado!" Like he was literally shooting out of his seat, going, "Tornado, tornado!"
That's awesome.
So I was kind of looking at him more than I was looking at the film, just because of the distraction. I'm like, "You got to be quiet, dude." But so the only thing that I saw that tied it to the old one was a scaled down version of Dorothy. And for everyone listening, Dorothy was a machine, something or other designed, a science project designed in the first film by Bill Paxton and I'm forgetting her name. Damn it.
Helen Hunt.
Female protagonists in the first film.
Helen Hunt.
There you go. They designed, and it was basically this big container that had these spherical sensors that they were supposed to fly up into a tornado, just gather data and whatever. And they just these students started using her, Dorothy, in the beginning of the film, right? But then we never see Dorothy ever again. It just got obliterated. So they pivoted to a different side project that Daisy Edgar Jones's character was trying to use in this film in order to basically get rid of tornadoes. So yeah, it was fun, I think, in the same breath that the original Twister was. We're not talking about, award-winning performances here or anything like that. It was a fun film, a little bit of nostalgia, kind of in the same breath. Team versus Storm Chaser team versus Storm Chaser team was brought back into this. So a little bit of a recycle of the old film. However, the change in this one was the two teams kind of end up merging a little bit, right? Or players from either team, like one goes to the protagonist, Daisy Edgar Jones. She starts on the geeky, sciencey team that has very good funding and stuff like that, which in the original film was killed off, right? They just got sucked into a tornado. And this one, she starts on that team and goes to the put it on a Band-Aid on it and slap some duct tape and we'll make this work kind of team. So that's what it was. I liked it. I thought it was a good film. They should bring it back. I don't know if it's gone from Universal. I haven't been to Universal in years. It was literally like a stage, the Twister stage or something like that. And like, you were in a sound stage kind of thing and like things were flying all over the place and whatever. Cool. So it wasn't really like a ride. It was like a room you walk through. Yeah. Pretty cool. But yeah, definitely they could definitely do something like that back at Universal Studios. Eric, you want to give it a disco ball rating? You want to talk about it some more?
Having lived now near tornadoes, this movie felt a lot more scary. Actually, there were shots of it that you go, "Oh yeah, the tornadoes are scary subjects." The only thing I will say is, and Jesse and I were talking about this on the way home. She's like, "Yeah, this is the best good-looking group of like meteorologists." I can't say that word. Meteorologists that you can kind of see on screen. She's like, "No way! There is no way that people like this actually exist." So, no, I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. Disco ball wise, I think 3.5 for me. 3.5. Yeah.
Good. And I'll also throw it I'll give it 3 disco balls.
Nice.
Cool. So, moving on. Anthony, what you watching?
I am watching an Austrian film, came out this year, called The Devil's Bath. It's billed as a historical drama / horror film. I watched it because of the horror component, but I think it airs more on the side of historical drama thriller. I didn't get much of a horror vibe to it, but it's this very atmospheric type of film. It takes place in 1750 in Austria, and pretty much it opens. It's a very dark film. It's a very dark film.
A demon movie? It was dark? What?
It's not a demon movie. I actually don't understand why they call it The Devil's Bath. I have an idea now, but there's no demons, there's no paranormal, there's no monsters, there's nothing like that in it. It's the uncomfortable vibe of the darkness of the forest. It's the oppression of women in that time frame. So anyway, this movie was based on research done by, I forget who the woman's name is, but there was this I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, this moment in time where all these suicides were happening, and it was by women, and it wasn't like self-inflicted suicide. It was suicide by admission of a crime, so they could just be taken out. So the movie opens with this woman, this baby, and this woman picks up this baby and takes the baby into the woods. And I'm going to spoil this a little bit because it kind of baselines it. And I think, any research that you do on this film, you read this. She gets to this waterfall, and she's holding the baby, and she puts a rosary on the baby, and then she throws the baby off the waterfall. And then she genuflects, and then she goes to their version of the police in Austria in 1750 and says, "I've committed a crime." And then they kill her because she committed murder. They kill her, and they leave her body, up on this mountain. And then the next day is this wedding ceremony of this young girl and this guy. They have their wedding ceremony. Her neighbor or brother or cousin, whatever, gifts her a piece of the woman who they just killed as a kind of a gift of fertility. I know there's a lot of things that are going on that are not explained until the very, very end. And so the woman takes the finger. She goes home to her new home with her husband, and the husband denies her in bed. And all this woman wants is to bear a child and be a mother. Anyway, she's not getting jiggy with her husband at all throughout the series, and so now she's like kind of stuck in her own head. She has suspicions about the husband and his sexuality because of something that she saw. And instead of wanting to live, she decides that she wants to die. But because of her deep religious beliefs, she cannot commit suicide because she will be going to hell. So she learns about what happened with the woman who threw the baby overboard. She commits a crime and admits to it, and then gets herself murdered. And that's how she takes herself out. And apparently this was a thing that happened in the 1700s and early 1800s in Austria because of religion, because of the suppression and oppression of women. But anyway, the film ends with her beheaded body on a stage, and they're filling up buckets of blood, and people are paying money to take cups of blood and drink it. And I guess that's the devil's bath component. But it sounds like, and they don't necessarily really touch on this, but it sounds like their imbibing of her blood or anybody's blood brings wealth and prosperity and fertility and all this stuff. It's a dark movie. It's very moody and atmospheric because of the time frame. It was written and directed by Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz, names you probably will have never heard of unless you watch Austrian horror films. So Goodnight Mommy, which I think was actually remade recently. It's about these twins. It's a good another moody, atmospheric type of horror film. This mother goes away for surgery, and when she comes home, she's covered in bandages, and she's the mother to these two twins, and the twins don't believe it's really their mother. So again, like very dark, moody. The Lodge is another horror film. So yeah. Anyway, it was good. It was not a horror movie as what I was expecting, but it was definitely a thriller drama. I would give it I'd give it 3.5 stars or 3.5 disco balls for it. If you're looking for something dark and but also kind of based a little bit on history. Yeah, 3.5 disco balls.
As you're describing it, I was like, this sounds very German, and it is. Yeah. It's Austrian German, so I was like, okay.
You almost
really. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, did either of you see Midsummer? Another.
I heard of it.
Yeah, and that takes place, I believe, in Sweden or Finland or something like that. But that's another one of those type of atmospheric. It was written and directed by Ari Aster, who he also did Hereditary. But like there are these types of movies that just are their surroundings are just as much of a star of the film as the actors are, and they're very story heavy. They use music. They use the natural sounds of the environment as the soundtrack, which adds to the eeriness and the discomfort that you get in watching the film. So that's what I kind of liken this to as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Any other closing thoughts, Eric? No. Cool. Yeah, German films, it's like one of those things where you're like, I'm not sure I want to go to this little mini film festival thing to see this because it's just very odd sometimes. And so, yeah, very German vibes when you're doing
Austria
that.
gave us Arnold Schwarzenegger, man.
I mean, it's
they
definitely
gave us
worth a
Arnold.
watch. I was looking here. It says it's like a 90% audience score. So,
Here.
cool.
Oh, we have a guest.
Hello.
Hello, sir. He can't hear us because
He
he's
can't hear
not
me.
wearing headphones.
Do you see Mr. Chris and Mr. Eric from yesterday? Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Chris.
Hi.
He says hi. Here, do you want to see the? Can you
Whoa,
hear Mr. Chris?
I'm just imagining it
Stretches.
snapping. All right.
All right, take us
Let's
out,
get
Chris.
this outro done. Do you want more Geeky A Go-Go? Well, make sure you're following us on all the socials at Geeky A Go-Go and share with us what you're watching. Want cool stuff? Want to connect with us on a higher level, like on our Discord channel? Head on over to patreon.com/geekyagogo and support the show. You'll get awesome swag and other perks. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're following the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.